Welcome to Community Conversations. My name is Peter Fousek. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of Connecticut Tenants Union, and tonight I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Luke Melonakos-Harrison.
Great to be here. I'm Vice President and Political Director of Connecticut Tenants Union.
Conversations that our members are able to have with their representatives really kind of fundamentally alters the nature of the conversation. It changes it from something that is a thought experiment, a policy proposal problem, an MBA problem set exercise, even a question of economics and business interest, to a question of human life and well-being. That's really what it is. I mean, when your housing doesn't work, nothing else in your life works. And we see that every day. We see how this is a public health issue and a public health crisis. The housing crisis and the crisis of tenancy, as rents skyrocket and eviction rates go up and displacement goes up alongside it, is the homelessness crisis. It's also the mold and respiratory disease crisis. It's also mental health crisis, childhood development, educational outcome crisis, all because of the fundamentally intersectional nature of housing. When folks mobilize around their shared interest, their class interest as tenants, and go to the legislature saying, we are your constituents with just as valid a claim on your time and your interest as anybody else in your constituency. It's not a matter of optimizing a profit and loss statement. It's an issue of life and death. It's an issue of, am I going to be able to put food on the table for my kids? And am I going to be able to guarantee that they don't get unnecessarily sick, seriously ill, simply because somebody doesn't want to pay to upkeep the place that we're living, and we do not have the legal right to do so ourselves because we don't have $40,000 sitting around to put down as a down payment. That humanization, I think, has really made what we've done in the legislature as unprecedented as it's been in terms of the momentum we've garnered over such a short time period. The folks in the legislature listen, because they're talking to human beings, and they're human beings, and it really, I think, is a necessary predicate of any understanding that can then motivate a collaboration between the powers that be and those who have been all too often forgotten by the power structures that exist.
The specific piece of legislation that we're ready to campaign around when the legislative session starts again in January is such a good example of that. Eviction and the laws around it and the court process around it is something that not a lot of people are familiar with unless they've gone through it themselves, which 1 in 20 renter households have in 2024. A stat that I just learned that was pretty jolting even for me. I mean, that's 1 in 20 is a really high percentage of people to go through the deeply traumatizing experience of eviction. But unless you're in that category or have interacted with the court process of eviction in another way, most people have not a lot of understanding of how that works, what that looks like. And if we talk about just cause eviction purely in the register of court processes and, legal details, it can mask what we're really getting at when we're talking about it, which is everything that you just described, people's experiences of not knowing that they're going to have a place to sleep that's going to be safe and secure next month. That's what Just Cause is about, is an assurance that at minimum, if you are kind of able to keep up with the rent, which is hard enough to do, abiding by the lease, not bothering anyone, not harming anyone, you can sleep easy at night knowing that you're not going to be tossed out all of a sudden without even a justification for it, not even accusing you of doing something that then you could then try to remedy, but simply for no fault, a no-fault eviction. And that's what Just Cause is about. It's just saying, as a tenant, you don't have a lot of protections.
Yeah.
At least you should have the assurance that you can't be kicked out without a valid reason, because we're talking about your housing. We're talking about the roof over your head, with the foundation of the entire rest of your life, where your kids go to school and your doctor's appointments are scheduled and you have a way to get to work and you have a life. You can't just be fully uprooted out of your life because there was a change of property ownership and the new investor from New York wants to double the rent.
Right.
It's not a good enough reason to kick somebody out of their home.
Right.
It's only when tenants are telling the story that a housing policy is going to be framed in that way. I mean, we have many allies and advocates whom we love and appreciate, but it is different when it's people telling their own stories and speaking to the issues from their own felt experience and what they are seeing around them in their own community, versus a kind of outsider's view, as sympathetic as that outsider might be, trying to talk about something that's inherently distant and abstract to them. That's the difference the tenant union is making in the realm of legislation and politics. It's tenants speaking for ourselves about our experiences and what, we're asking for protection from certain kinds of eviction, us telling the legislature directly what that means and what the lack of it will continue to mean, because that's what we're seeing all around us.
Yeah.
As tenants, just in our communities, this extreme vulnerability to instability and displacement, and this overwhelming feeling of like, how do you plan ahead in your life? How do you have a sense of being able to really put down roots in a place over time if it can be so arbitrary that you're going to lose your home and there's nothing you can do to stop it? Now, no matter how hard you work or how consistent you are on the rent, it doesn't matter if no-fault evictions are as easy as they currently are. Hopefully we can get that message across in an even louder and more powerful way than we did in the legislative session of 2024. I'm confident that we will, because I'm confident that even more people will be there to share that message with us.
Without a doubt.
What's wild about this movement is just how quickly it's growing.
It's because people recognize the need.
Yeah.
The message resonates when folks see others organizing around this and recognize that, I'm not the only one, and maybe it's not because of anything I've done. Maybe this is a system set up to exploit and extract, and maybe there's something we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's all we got for tonight. But thank you for joining us for this community conversation.